Lenora Wycliffe's thumbnail rests on my name at the bottom of the confirmation. Prepared for Lenora Wycliffe by Mara Ellis, she reads. Across the glass table, my uncle's smile tightens. That morning, he erased my initials from the itinerary board and said, "Sophie gets your VIP booking." By lunch, Sophie's name was on every internal file he could change. Apparently, he couldn't change the paper in Lenora's hands. "Where is Mara?" she asks. Grant points towards Sophie. "Mara assembled the early draft, but Sophie is your lead advisor now. We believe in matching each client with—" I asked where Mara is. "I'm standing 10 feet away outside the glass wall, holding a paper cup that has begun collapsing between my fingers." Grant reaches for Lenora's navy folio. "Let me replace that outdated copy." She pulls it against her chest. "No," she says. "The booking still names her." Through the wall, Grant looks directly at me. What frightens me isn't his anger, it's the possibility that I'll walk in and save him again. 6 hours earlier, the same room smelled like dry erase cleaner and Sophie's orange blossom perfume. I had arranged the chairs before our 8:30 briefing because the facilities company had left them facing the wrong end of the table. There were 12 chairs, all identical except for one with a loose armrest that dropped half an inch whenever someone leaned on it. Grant always found that chair and complained about it. I put it at my own place. On the glassboard, I had drawn Lenora Wycliffe's route in blue marker. Boston, Copenhagen, Hamburg, Basel, Lyon, Milan, Venice. Red circles marked ticketing deadlines. Green boxes marked supplier confirmations. I'd put a small triangle next to Basel because the Swiss Rail timetable was changing on Sunday, and although the new schedule hadn't been published, the construction notice suggested her connection would shrink. Dev Patel came in carrying 2 coffees and looked at the board. "You forgot the moon landing," he said. "Wait until you see Venice." Does she still need 3 different cars in Venice? 1 water taxi from Santa Lucia, 1 accessible launch for the archive tour, and 1 backup in case the first captain wears cologne. Dev handed me a coffee. You say these things like they're normal. After 11 weeks, they are normal. Lenora had once rejected a hotel driver because his air freshener smelled like artificial pine. She could tell when a room had been described as courtyard-facing to disguise that it faced a wall. She traveled with her own tea, requested printed rail diagrams, and considered the phrase VIP treatment a warning that someone was about to substitute flowers for competence. I liked her. She asked difficult questions, then remembered the answers. When she changed her mind, she admitted it. After 40 years in hotel operations, she knew exactly how much work hid behind the words "all arranged." Sophie arrived 3 minutes late with a croissant in a white bag and kissed the air near Grant's cheek. "Traffic was feral," she said. "We all came through the same traffic," Dev said. Sophie looked at his 2 coffees. "Some of us clearly had provisions." She was 28, only 3 years younger than me. But Grant called her a young agent so often that clients expected someone wearing an internship badge. She wasn't. She had brought in a destination wedding account worth more than our first quarter's corporate renewals, and she could get a hotel sales director to return a call during a fire alarm. She also treated ticketing deadlines as if they were opening suggestions. Grant waited until everyone was seated. Then he stood beside my board, rocking slightly on his heels, the way he did when he was about to announce something he'd already described to himself as bold. "Before we dig in, there's a change in lead ownership." I uncapped my pen. He smiled at Sophie. "Sophie gets your VIP booking. For 1 stupid second, I thought your meant someone else's. I looked down the table as if another person might have spent 11 weeks booking Lenora Wycliffe's trip." Sophie stopped chewing. Grant picked up the eraser. "What?" I said. "We're transitioning Lenora's account to Sophie, effective today." He wiped my initials from Copenhagen. The blue M disappeared under his hand, followed by the one beside Hamburg. The room went quiet enough for me to hear the loose armrest click under my elbow. "Her final briefing is at 2:30. "Exactly. It gives us a clean handoff." "You haven't told her. We're telling her today." He erased Basel. My coffee sat untouched beside my notebook. On its cardboard sleeve, Dev had written, "Do not fix anything before caffeine." I put both hands under the table so no one could see them. "Why?" I asked. Grant's tone warmed, which was always worse. "Because we're building something larger than individual ownership. Sophie is going to be the face of the new VIP division, and Lenora's trip is the right opportunity to demonstrate continuity." The sentence had clearly been polished in private. Continuity with someone she's never met. That's what a handoff is for. "We don't have a handoff scheduled. We have a final review." Sophie folded the top of her croissant bag. "I can handle a review, Mara." "I didn't say you couldn't. You looked at me when you said it." "You're sitting beside him." Dev coughed into his coffee. Grant shot him a look, then erased Lion. I watched a red deadline note vanish with it. "The archive requires its passport list by Thursday at noon French time," I said. "Lenora's assistant sent the corrected scan last night. It hasn't gone out because I was waiting for the second traveler's middle name." Sophie opened her laptop. "Put that in the notes." "It is in the notes." "Then perfect." "No, then it's in the notes. It still has to be done." Grant capped the eraser with unnecessary care. "This is the kind of resistance we need to move past." A flush climbed from my collar. 6 people were studying laptops, legal pads, the grain of the table, anything that wasn't my face. What resistance? The idea that complex work can only be done by one person. "I trained half this room, and now you're going to help train Sophie." There it was. He wasn't just taking the commission. He wanted the work to continue through me while the account belonged to her. Sophie glanced at him. It was quick, but I saw uncertainty pass between them. "When was this decided?" I asked. Grant's mouth flattened. "Don't make this personal. You're my uncle, and in this room, I'm your managing director." He had used the family relationship whenever it made me easier to ask and discarded it whenever it made him easier to question. I looked at the route. Venice was the only city still carrying my initial. "Who holds approval authority after the transfer?" "Sophie does." "Who has the after-hours phone?" "We'll work out the coverage." "Who takes the debit memo if a segment gets reissued outside fair rules?" "Mara," Sophie said, "I'm not planning to issue anything outside fair rules. Nobody plans to. That's why it's called an error." Grant dropped the eraser onto the tray. "You're going to give Sophie the full operational file, supplier history, preferences, and open action list before lunch. You'll attend the briefing for support." "Am I still the servicing advisor?" "No." "Am I being paid a handoff fee?" A few heads lifted. Grant's eyebrows rose. "You're salaried." "My employment agreement gives me commission on managed leisure accounts, and management has discretion to reassign accounts, before or after the work is done." Sophie sat back. "I didn't ask him to take your commission." Grant turned on her. "You're not taking anything. I'm assigning resources." That was the first surprising thing she did. She looked embarrassed. The second was that she didn't refuse. I closed my notebook. "I'll send a transfer summary." "Good. And sit down with Sophie." "The summary will contain everything required to service the booking. Mara." "If she has questions after reading it, she can send them to me." His gaze sharpened. "We are not conducting this through formal memos." "I think we are." Dev stared into his coffee as if it had become religious. Grant knew me well enough to recognize the difference between anger and decision. Anger made me talk faster. Decision made me precise. I stood. The faulty armrest dropped with a clack. "By noon," I said. The service floor occupied the old ticketing room my mother had designed when Ellis Passage still issued paper coupons. The counters were too high, the drawers too deep, and the carpet had a pattern meant to hide coffee stains and human despair. Above my desk hung a faded framed route map of the original Orient Express. Grant had tried to replace it with abstract art after the renovation, but my mother had drawn pencil notes in one corner, so I kept it. I logged into our reservation system and opened Lenora's passenger name record. The screen was dense with segment codes and remarks. To anyone else, it looked finished. I saw moving parts. Copenhagen had confirmed the fragrance-free housekeeping protocol, but not the early breakfast tray. Hamburg's driver had the correct pickup time and the wrong terminal. Basel depended on a train whose schedule would change in 5 days. Lyon had 2 hotel confirmations because Lenora wanted the option to shift the archive visit if the director's surgery changed his availability. Milan's private guide had agreed to avoid the main entrance at the Design Museum, where a sponsored event would clog the street. I exported the queue history, not because I intended to weaponize it, but because Grant had a habit of asking why nobody had warned him about things he had acknowledged in writing. Then I built the transfer. Open actions, ticketing limits, payment authorizations, supplier cancellation terms, special service requests, contact preferences. Each line included a date, owner, and consequence. At 11:15, Sophie rolled a chair to my desk. "Are you going to make me read all that?" "Yes. It's 43 pages. 6 are hotel room diagrams." She picked up the stack and let it fall. "You know what I mean?" "I do." "Grant said you were going to walk me through it." "Grant says things." The corner of her mouth twitched despite herself. "Look, I get why you're angry. Do you?" "Yes, I'm not a complete idiot. I've never thought you were." "No, you think I'm a decorative idiot, slightly better." I turned away from the screen. Sophie's confidence worked like stage lighting. Up close, I could see where it ended. She had bitten the skin beside her thumbnail raw. "I think you're good at bringing people in," I said. "I think you're good at making clients trust you quickly. I also think you don't know this booking. That's why I'm here." "No, you're here because he told you I would keep doing it." Her chin lifted. "He said the account needed a fresh relationship. Lenora doesn't need fresh. She needs the breakfast tray confirmed for 6:15 because her first conference panel starts before hotel service." Sophie looked down at the first page. 6:15, she said. "It's highlighted." "Right." I slid the transfer acknowledgement toward her. "What's this?" "A record that you received the file and that lead authority transfers at noon." She laughed once. "You want me to sign for homework?" "I want the record to match reality." "You always do this?" "No, usually nobody takes an account from me 6 hours before departure briefing." Her face hardened. "You could make this easier." "For whom?" She had no quick answer. At noon, she signed. At 12:02, I emailed the document to Sophie and Grant, copied Dev because he supervised ticketing, and changed my status in the internal record from lead advisor to prior servicing advisor. The system kept my original creation code in the history. Grant could change the visible assignment, but he couldn't make the work appear in reverse. My phone buzzed before I finished. "Come upstairs." Grant's office had once belonged to my mother. He'd replaced her brass desk lamp with a sculptural black one that gave off almost no useful light. The only thing he kept was the photograph of the 2 of them outside their first storefront, both sunburned and laughing beneath a crooked Ellis passage sign. He stood at the window with my email open on his monitor. "You copied Dev. He owns the ticketing risk. You used the phrase transfer of authority. That's what happened. You made it sound adversarial. You erased my name from a glass board in front of the staff." His jaw shifted. "This is the sensitivity I was talking about." "Which part? The part where I noticed?" "I am trying to position us for a partnership that could add 10 people and double our preferred hotel leverage. I need a VIP program clients can recognize. Sophie can sell that program. Then let her sell it. She also needs to lead it. Then let her lead it. You know exactly what I'm asking." "Yes." He waited. I had spent most of my adult life filling silences for Grant. I did it in supplier meetings, at family dinners, in hotel lobbies after he promised something we couldn't deliver. I let this one remain empty. His voice lowered. "At 2:30, you will sit beside Sophie. If Lenora asks you a question, you will direct it back to Sophie. You will show unity." Will you tell Lenora before the meeting that her advisor changed? We'll handle Lenora. The way he said it made my skin cool. On his side table sat a new gold-embossed brochure mock-up, Ellis Passage Private Client. Beneath it, in smaller type, was Sophie's name. How long have you been planning this? Grant glanced at the brochure, and that was enough. I thought of the champagne Sophie's mother had opened at Sunday dinner. To new beginnings, she'd said. I'd assumed she meant the partnership. Be in the conference room at 2:20, Grant said. I went back downstairs and pulled Lenora's paper file from the locked cabinet. The duplicate navy folio was inside, its gold elastic wrapped twice around the cover. I had assembled it 3 weeks earlier, before Grant changed the internal assignment. My name remained printed beneath every emergency contact page. I set it on my desk and rested my hand on the cover. At 2:11, reception called. Lenora Wycliffe is here, Mina said. She brought her own confirmation. I looked through the glass wall toward the conference room. Grant was straightening the new brochure in front of Sophie. Then I looked at the navy folio on my desk. For the first time, I left it exactly where it was. I set the collapsing paper cup on the reception counter and opened the conference room door. Lenora turned first. She wore a charcoal suit and a silk scarf printed with tiny gold keys. Her silver hair was cut so precisely that even the afternoon humidity had failed to move it. The navy folio remained pressed to her ribs. Mara, she said, are you still employed here? Grant made a sound halfway between a laugh and a warning. I am. Are you ill? No. Have you done something that prevents you from servicing my trip? No. Then sit down. Grant touched the back of the empty chair beside Sophie. Mara is here in a support capacity. Lenora looked at his hand until he removed it. I took the chair at the far end of the table. The loose armrest was waiting for me. When I leaned down to pull my notebook from the table's lower shelf, it clicked. Lenora noticed. So, she said, you reassigned my account without consulting me. We reassigned internal leadership, Grant said. Your trip remains fully protected. When? This morning, Sophie said. Grant turned toward her. Sophie held his look. She asked when. Lenora slid a pair of reading glasses from the folio's inside pocket. My final briefing began 8 minutes ago. That gives Ms. Ellis's replacement approximately 6 hours of experience, with an itinerary I have been discussing for nearly 3 months. I've reviewed the full file, Sophie said. All 43 pages? Sophie's eyes flicked toward me. 43, she said. Then tell me which hotel I chose in Lyon. The Montclar. And the alternate? Sophie opened her laptop. The Wi-Fi decided that moment to request a password update. The alternate isn't a change, I said. It's being held in case the archive director moves the appointment. Lenora kept her eyes on Sophie. Which hotel? The Saint-Remy, Sophie said after finding the transfer summary. Superior Courtyard room, cancelable until 6 p.m. local time 2 days prior. Why a courtyard room? It's quieter. Usually. This one is above the kitchen exhaust. Sophie scrolled. I knew the answer. Grant knew I knew it. For several seconds, he let her struggle anyway. It's the only category with a bathtub and elevator access in the older wing, I said. The hotel blocked a room on the 4th floor, away from the exhaust. That's in the supplier email attached behind the diagram. Sophie found the email. Correct, Lenora said. You may continue supporting yourself. Grant's knee moved under the table. He had a habit of bouncing it when he wanted to interrupt, but couldn't find an elegant opening. He finally said, Lenora, what you're seeing is precisely why our team structure works. Information is documented. Service isn't dependent on a single individual. Then why did you need the individual to answer? Sophie closed her laptop halfway. Because I don't know you yet. It was the cleanest thing anyone had said all day. Lenora studied her. And you're comfortable taking responsibility for a trip belonging to someone you don't know? I'm comfortable learning quickly. That wasn't the question. Sophie ran her thumb over the bitten skin beside her nail. I wasn't asked if I was comfortable. Grant's chair stopped moving. I could almost hear Diane's voice in Sophie's head. This is your chance. Don't embarrass Grant. Don't let Mara make you feel small. Lenora removed the gold elastic from the folio and laid it straight on the table. I don't object to succession, she said. I ran hotels. People leave. People advance. People get hit by taxis. I object to theater. You planned to put a stranger in front of me and see whether I was polite enough to pretend. Grant leaned forward. I'm sorry the transition felt abrupt. It was abrupt. I have no interest in how it felt. Dev would have enjoyed that sentence. Lenora opened to the segment summary. I want the actual condition of the itinerary, not adjectives. Grant nodded at Sophie. Sophie nodded at me. For the next 20 minutes, I gave Lenora facts. Copenhagen's breakfast tray remained unconfirmed. Hamburg had corrected the terminal number. The Basel connection was still protected under the published schedule, but Sunday's timetable revision might require an earlier departure. Lyon was waiting on Dr. Miriam Sato's middle name for the archive passport list. Both Milan and Venice were firm. I directed every answer towards Sophie. She took notes, asked twice for clarification, and caught a discrepancy I had missed in the Hamburg driver's mobile number. When I finished, Lenora tapped the archive page. You have Dr. Sato's passport. The corrected scan arrived last night, I said. So why is the list waiting? The first scan showed only an initial. The corrected one shows her full name. It needs to be sent by noon Lyon time tomorrow. Sophie wrote it down. Not noon here, I added. I know how time zones work. Lenora lifted an eyebrow. Sophie exhaled. Noon Lyon time. Grant steered the conversation toward hotel amenities, ground support, and the welcome package Sophie had begun designing. Sophie showed Lenora a sample luggage tag embossed with her initials. Lenora turned it over once. I use the paper tags the railway provides, she said. They tear away when the trip is over. Sophie put the sample back in its box. Good to know. By 3:20, Lenora had agreed to let us send a written responsibility plan before she decided whether to accept the transfer. She didn't cancel. She didn't approve Sophie. She took the navy folio with her. At the door, she paused beside me. My mother believed silence was the same as dignity, she said. It made her very easy to mistreat. Then she left before I could decide whether I resented the observation. Grant waited until the elevator indicator dropped below our floor. What exactly did you think you were doing? The reception area had gone still. Mina pretended to organize courier envelopes. Sophie stood behind him holding the little box with the rejected luggage tag. I answered the client's questions. You contradicted me in front of her. You told her nothing had changed. Her trip is protected. She asked if I'd done something that prevented me from servicing it. What answer did you want? A professional one. I gave her 3. Sophie set the box on Mina's counter. She would have known if Mara lied. Grant swung toward her. I didn't ask her to lie. You asked her to redirect every question to me. I couldn't answer half of them without searching. That's what the briefing was for. Then why did you transfer it before the briefing? The question landed harder from Sophie than it could have from me. Grant looked from one of us to the other. I will not have the two of you turning this into some loyalty contest. It became a loyalty contest when you put my name on that brochure, Sophie said. You wanted a larger role. I do. Then act like it. Her face went blank in the way faces do when someone has found the old wound instead of the current argument. She picked up the luggage tag box and walked toward the service floor. Grant waited for the elevator doors to close behind her. You enjoyed that. No. Don't insult me. I didn't enjoy watching her realize you set her up to look unprepared. His cheeks colored. You're off the VIP queue effective immediately. That booking still has open actions. You transferred them. Then we agree. We agree that your attitude is making you a risk. He went back into the conference room and closed the glass door. I could see his mouth moving as he called someone. The glass was thick enough that I couldn't hear the words, but I knew his posture. The slight bend at the waist, one hand in his pocket, voice softened. He was calling Diane. By the time I returned to my desk, the 2 referral emails that had been assigned to me that morning were gone. One had moved to Sophie. The other went to Calvin, who sold cruises and thought a rail pass was a kind of laminated ticket. Dev leaned over the partition. Was that him being calm? Yes, terrifying. He removed me from VIP. Dev's humor faded. Completely. I refreshed my access. The queue disappeared from the left side of my screen. Completely. He looked toward Grant's office. I can still see ticketing history. You should. It's your department. I'm mentioning it because Grant once asked me to clean up an attribution code after the fact. I looked at him. I refused, he said. Then he said he'd only been testing whether the system allowed it. Of course. He didn't touch anything. I'm telling you because if he does, it'll show. Don't do anything special. I'm doing my job. Do it exactly the same way you did yesterday. Dev nodded. That's usually how I do it. At 5:10, I received the responsibility plan Grant had promised Lenora. It named Sophie as lead advisor, Grant as executive sponsor, and the service team as operational support. My name appeared nowhere except the forwarded confirmation Lenora had brought with her. I replied with one question. Who has after-hours authority to approve itinerary changes? Grant answered 3 minutes later. Sophie, with management escalation as required. I saved it with the transfer acknowledgement. The apartment above Grant and Diane's detached garage had seemed like a temporary arrangement when I moved in 2 years earlier. My building was being converted into condominiums, Grant had an empty space, and Diane said the rent would help cover the property taxes. I paid market rate, watered their herbs when they traveled, and went through the side gate so everyone could pretend our boundaries were normal. That evening, Diane was waiting at the bottom of my stairs with a casserole dish wrapped in a blue towel. I made too much lasagna, she said. You never make too much lasagna. I'm not here to fight. She came up anyway. My apartment consisted of one large room and a bathroom whose door swelled shut in humid weather. The bed faced the kitchenette. A narrow dining table stood beneath the eaves, covered in old invoices I was digitizing for the agency. Diane set the dish between them. Grant is under tremendous pressure, she said. So he called you. He came home early. That was apparently evidence of a medical emergency. I took 2 forks from the drawer. Diane accepted one, but didn't sit. He's trying to create something for the future, she said. He created a brochure for Sophie, for all of you. Mysteriously, my name didn't fit. She's my daughter, Mara. I'm aware. You have always had a place in that business. She's had to earn her way into a family that was already formed. Sophie had earned her accounts. She had also been handed mine. Both things could be true, which was what made Diane so effective when she wanted something. I didn't object to Sophie having a larger role, I said. I objected to Grant taking completed work from me and expecting me to pretend it was development. Diane folded the towel into a perfect square. Your mother and Grant traded accounts all the time. My mother's name is still on the profit-sharing agreements from those years. That's not fair. No, it's accounting. She flinched. I regretted the line as soon as it left my mouth. Diane had spent the last decade entering every family conversation about my mother already braced to lose. I'm sorry, I said. She nodded without forgiving me. Sophie came home humiliated. So did I. You don't come home here, Mara. You rent here. The room changed shape around us. Diane heard it too. Her fingers tightened on the towel. I didn't mean it like that. You did. You just didn't plan to say it. Mara, when does our lease renew? October. I'll be out before then. She set down the towel. Don't be dramatic. I looked at the lasagna between us. Its cheese had slid toward one corner during the walk across the driveway. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm making the record match reality. The next morning, Sophie confirmed Copenhagen's breakfast service by persuading the hotel's banquet manager to treat Lenora's tray as a standing conference order instead of a room service request. It was smart, clean, and better than the solution I'd been pushing through guest services. She sent the confirmation to Grant. He forwarded it to the staff with the subject line "Ownership in Action." No one replied. At 11:30, Dev stopped beside my desk. "Lion passport list," he said quietly. "What about it?" "Still open." "It's Sophie's action. Deadline is in 30 minutes. "I know." At 11:46, Sophie appeared with her phone in one hand and the transfer file in the other. The archive coordinator says the director's office has closed submissions. It's after noon in Lion. They need the list through their secure link, and the link expired. That's in the supplier notes. I saw it. After it expired. Her nostrils flared. "Can you call Elodie?" "I can." Relief crossed her face. "But I won't call under my relationship and pretend the request went out on time. I'm not asking you to pretend. What are you asking me to tell her? That there was an internal handoff? And who owns the missed deadline?" Sophie looked toward Grant's office. I waited. "He does," she said. "He insisted I spend the morning on Lenora's revised welcome materials before I handled the open list." "Will he put that in writing?" "You know he won't." "Then I'm not stepping into it." Grant's voice came from behind us. "From now on, every vendor communication on the Wycliffe account routes through me." He had heard enough to decide the problem was access to me, not the decision he had made. Sophie's face went pale. "That'll slow everything down. It'll establish control." My screen chimed with a corporate fare alert. I turned back to it. Grant placed both palms on my desk. "You have institutional knowledge you are deliberately withholding." I transferred the knowledge. 43 pages, signed at noon. "This isn't over." "No," I said. "Lion is." Grant's hand stayed on my desk. "Office, now." "I have a fare on hold. Let it go. It's for 4 engineers flying to Tulsa. Their ticketing limit is in 9 minutes. This is more important. Not to them." Dev stood up behind the partition. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Grant saw him, saw Calvin watching from the crew's desk, saw Mina reflected in the glass, and lifted his hands. "You have 5 minutes." "I need 7. Grant walked away. The fare held. I ticketed all 4 travelers, checked the receipts, and sent the company's coordinator the seat assignments she'd requested. Then I saved my work and went upstairs. A formal warning waited on Grant's printer. The heading said "Failure to support operational transition." Beneath it, he'd written that I had refused a reasonable instruction and endangered a key client relationship by withholding a supplier contact. "You forgot the part where the contact is on page 31, I said. "This isn't a debate." "Then why am I here?" "To sign it." I read the rest. He had removed me from managed leisure accounts pending a performance review. Any commission earned before reassignment would be calculated according to management's final determination. For the next 30 days, I would service corporate travel and general intake only. "You already gave away the 2 referrals, I said. "I redirected resources after your behavior in the conference room. "You did it before I went home. I don't have to justify every staffing decision to you. No, you just have to date them accurately." He pushed a pen across the desk. I wrote "receipt acknowledged, fax disputed" above the signature line and signed my name. Grant read it. "You always need the last word." "You printed the last word," I added 6. He folded the warning into my personnel file. "You won't be paid commission on Wycliffe until this is resolved." The amount wasn't life-changing. It was also exactly what I'd planned to put toward replacing my Honda before its transmission gave up. I had already found a used blue Corolla with low mileage and a seller who didn't call minor collision damage a personality trait. When will it be resolved? When the trip is completed and I can assess everyone's contribution. You're assessing my contribution after giving it to someone else. He sat behind the black lamp. In the dim light, he looked older than he had that morning. I am trying to keep this company from becoming irrelevant, he said. Caro Finch has 3 offices, preferred status with hotel groups we can't even get callbacks from, and a marketing budget bigger than our payroll. They're willing to partner because we have clients like Lenora and people like Sophie who can bring in the next Lenora. And people like me? You're excellent at the work. That wasn't an answer. His eyes moved to the photograph of him and my mother outside the old storefront. Your mother knew how to build something that didn't revolve around her, he said. It was cruel because it was partly true. She had documented everything, trained freely, and sent clients to other advisors when they were a better fit. She'd also put people's names on their work. Send me the commission calculation when you decide what my work was worth, I said. My corporate queue was full by the time I returned downstairs. Grant hadn't merely changed my category, he had assigned me every dull, urgent request nobody else wanted. Same-day changes, unused ticket credits, travelers whose profiles listed their seat preference as good. By Thursday afternoon, I had re-protected a pharmaceutical rep after a ground stop in Atlanta, found a hotel near a refinery town where the only remaining room was incorrectly coded as unavailable, and persuaded an airline to preserve a credit for an accountant whose legal surname had changed between bookings. None of them knew I was being punished. They thanked me anyway. The refinery traveler, a project manager named Ruth Calder, called after checking in. I just wanted a human being to know I'm inside a room with a door that locks, she said. The first 2 hotels told me to try the next county. Please don't inspect the carpet too closely. I've decided the floor is lava. I laughed before I could stop myself. You saved my night, Mara. After we hung up, I wrote her hotel confirmation number on a sticky note and added it to the day's completed pile. The pile wasn't glamorous. It was proof of work that existed whether Grant displayed it or not. Across the room, Sophie was repairing the Montclair reservation. The hotel had assigned Lenora a renovated junior suite, technically an upgrade, directly above the service alley. Sophie called the director of sales instead of reservations. I understand why your team thought larger meant better, she said, warm enough to make the correction sound like a shared discovery. Ms. Wycliffe spent 38 years teaching hotels that luxury starts with listening. If she hears bottles at 5 in the morning, she won't blame the night porter. She'll blame the person who approved the room. She got the 4th floor room back, added a written no-move instruction, and secured breakfast without a delivery charge. When she ended the call, I said, "That was good." She turned, suspicious. "You don't have to sound shocked." "I don't." "You do a little." "Only because you got the hotel to waive a fee. They charge for breathing near the minibar." Her mouth softened. "The sales director wants Lenora's opinion on the renovation. Lenora will give it to her." I figured. It would have been easier if Sophie were useless. Useless people fit cleanly inside anger. Sophie kept refusing to. At 4:15, Grant sent a staff email announcing that Caro Finch's managing partners would visit Monday to review the proposed VIP division. Lenora's itinerary would be presented as a case study in seamless team servicing. Dev rolled his chair to my partition. "Seamless," he said. "Completely invisible stitches. Do stab wounds count as stitches?" "Go back to ticketing." He handed me a printed queue alert. The Swiss schedule update had loaded. Lenora's connection in Basel had dropped from 39 minutes to 17, with a platform change and an underground passage between them. "She can make 17 minutes, Dev said. "She can. Her luggage may achieve enlightenment somewhere near Bern. The later train gets her to Lyon at 11:40. Too late for the hotel's guaranteed arrival unless someone calls. And if the archive appointment moves, we may need the early arrival. Want me to flag it? It isn't my account. It's my ticket." That was the useful thing about Dev. He understood boundaries without turning them into an excuse. "Put it in the servicing queue," I said. "Copy Grant because all vendor communication routes through him." "And Sophie?" "She's lead." He sent the alert to both. Grant replied that the existing connection remained legal and instructed them not to disturb the client with hypothetical issues. Sophie came to my desk with the printed message. Would you leave it? No. I knew you'd say that. Then why ask? Because he said you overbuild everything. Sometimes I do. She blinked. I held 2 Lion hotels for 1 archive visit, I said. That is objectively excessive. Which one should we release? Neither yet. That was a trap. It was an illustration. She sat on the corner of my desk. If I move Lenora to the earlier Basel train, she loses the breakfast meeting in Hamburg. Yes. If I move her later, Lion has to guarantee after-hours arrival. Yes. If I leave it, the connection is legal. Yes, but bad. Legal and good are unrelated categories. Sophie stared at the route alert. I'll call her. Grant told you not to. I'm the lead advisor. It was the first time she'd used the title like a responsibility instead of a prize. Lenora chose the earlier train within 30 seconds. I can eat breakfast at home, she said, according to Sophie. I cannot drag a suitcase through a Swiss station by force of optimism. Grant found out when the rail confirmation hit his inbox. He called Sophie into his office. Their voices stayed low, but the conversation lasted almost an hour. She emerged with red eyes and went straight to the restroom. At 6, as I shut down my computer, she stopped beside me. He says I embarrassed him before the partner review. You prevented a missed connection. He says that wasn't the point. That's because he doesn't like the point. She looked exhausted. Mom says you're moving out. The fact that Diane had told her before I'd found a place made the apartment feel less mine than ever. I'm looking. She feels terrible about what she said. She should talk to me. She thinks you'll turn it into documentation. I'm looking for an apartment, Sophie, not taking a deposition. A laugh escaped her, followed too closely by a sob. She covered both with her hand. I offered her the tissue box from my desk. This is humiliating, she said. Use 2. It'll feel more expensive. She took 3. I did want the division, she said. I told Grant I was tired of getting treated like I was only good at drinks and welcome baskets. He said he'd give me something that proved I could lead. Did he tell you it would be Lenora? Sunday morning, before dinner. The champagne, new beginnings. He said you knew, Sophie added. I closed my laptop. Now you know he lied. What do you want me to do with that? That part isn't mine. On Friday morning, Lucia Moretti called my direct line from Milan. I received a new Venice transfer request from Grant, she said. It removes the accessible launch and replaces it with one standard water taxi. Is Lenora suddenly traveling without luggage or knees? It's no longer my account. Yes, I have gathered this from the 12 emails signed executive sponsor. I pinched the bridge of my nose. You need to ask Sophie. I did. She says she did not authorize the change. Then don't make it. I won't. I require the servicing advisor's name on any revised order. Grant says the company is the client. Grant is wrong. Lenora is. Lucia made a satisfied sound. There you are. Lucia. I know, not your account. Correct. Elodie from the Lion archive called me. I sat straighter. Why? They have a cancellation Tuesday afternoon. She cannot reopen the expired request, but she can accept a new one if the passport list comes with the hotel guarantee by Monday. Tuesday afternoon meant shifting Lion by one night. It meant surrendering Lenora's private reception Monday evening, using the Saint-Remy hold, and moving the flexible rail segment I had booked between Lion and Milan. The contingency nobody had understood suddenly had a purpose. Tell Elodie to contact the servicing advisor, I said. She asked for you. I don't have authority. Do you want me to tell her no? I looked across the room. Sophie was in Grant's office, standing beside the black lamp as he arranged brochures for Monday. On the service monitor, Lenora's departure countdown read 4 days. Tell her the truth, I said. I'm not authorized to negotiate. Lucia was quiet. Sometimes boundaries are very expensive, she said. I know. At 10:20, Lenora walked through reception carrying the navy folio. No appointment, no scarf, no patience. Grant came out smiling, but she placed the folio on Mina's counter before he could speak. My archive visit is gone, she said. Your executive sponsor tried to cancel my accessible launch, and I learned about a rail change from the replacement advisor you told not to call me. Sophie stepped out of Grant's office behind him. Lenora opened the folio to the service line bearing my name. I'm postponing my departure, she said. If Mara is willing to tell me what can still be repaired, I'll listen. If she isn't, I'll take this booking elsewhere. Grant looked at me with the old command already forming in his face. Fix it. I stood, but I didn't move toward the folio. Before I touch the account, I said, we need to agree on whose work it is. Grant's expression didn't change, but his hand closed around the edge of Mina's counter. This isn't the place to negotiate compensation. It became the place when you reassigned my work in a glass room. Lenora tucked the gold elastic inside the folio. You have a conference room. I recommend it. Sophie opened the door for her. Grant waited until Lenora had gone in, then lowered his voice. You are an employee, Mara. You don't dictate terms in front of clients. I'm also the person she asked to repair the trip. I can order you to repair it. You can. Then I'll work within my current authority, which is corporate travel and general intake. His face hardened. For years, I had mistaken the moment Grant became cold for the moment he became powerful. It was usually the moment he ran out of charm. Sophie stood beside the open door. She's right, she said. You made me lead advisor. I missed Lion. You removed her access. You can't call her responsible only when something breaks. Grant looked at her, as if she had changed languages mid-sentence. Lenora called from inside. I can still hear all of you. We joined her. The rejected luggage tag box remained in one corner from our first briefing. Grant moved it off the table and sat across from Lenora. Sophie took the chair beside him. I stayed standing until Lenora pointed to the chair with the loose armrest. That one appears to know you, she said. I sat. Grant folded his hands. Let's focus on preserving the trip. Mara, tell us what you need. A written lead advisor agreement. We have internal assignment records. The current record calls me prior servicing advisor. I'll change it. And protect it from being changed again without the client's written approval. Lenora nodded. Yes. Grant's jaw tightened. I need direct supplier access, I continued. No communication routed through an executive sponsor. Sophie and Dev stay copied because the account needs coverage. Open changes require a named person approving them. Fine. The original commission is restored. Any agency fees caused by the reassignment come out of the agency's margin, not Sophie's commission. Sophie glanced at me. Grant noticed. Why are you protecting her? I'm protecting the record. She didn't reassign the account. Lenora turned to Sophie. Did you know in advance? Sophie ran her finger along the seam of her laptop case. Grant told me Sunday morning that he was giving me Lenora's booking, she said. He said Mara knew. Grant leaned back. That conversation has nothing to do with repairing the itinerary. It explains why a brochure with Sophie's name was printed before Monday, I said. Lenora's eyes settled on him. I finished before he could redirect us. I will repair what can be repaired. I won't guarantee the archive visit until Ellis confirms it. I won't present the trip to Caro Finch as a successful team handoff, and I won't conceal the missed deadline. Grant's face reddened. Our partnership discussion is confidential. Then keep my work out of it. You are asking me to undermine a company-wide opportunity because you're offended. No, I'm asking you to stop using my recovery from your decision as proof that the decision worked. Lenora closed the folio. My departure is postponed until I see this agreement and a feasible itinerary, she said. Any fare difference created by the delay belongs to Ellis Passage. I will cover changes I choose for my own convenience. Grant looked down at the glass table. Our reflections floated over the blank surface where my route had been. What if Lion can't be restored? He asked. Then Mara will tell me that, Lenora said. I hired adults, not magicians. He gave a short nod. I'll have the agreement drafted by 2. By 1, Lenora said. Lion closes before you do. Grant's mouth almost formed a smile. Some stubborn part of him appreciated being out-negotiated cleanly. 1, he agreed. The agreement arrived at 12:43. It was 4 paragraphs long and missing the protection against unilateral reassignment. I sent it back. Grant added 1 sentence requiring written approval from both the client and managing director before the lead advisor could change. It wasn't permanent company policy, but it held for Lenora. At 1:07, Dev restored my VIP queue access. The Wycliffe record appeared with 14 open items and 3 red alerts. My name returned beside lead servicing advisor. Sophie's appeared under client relationship support. She pulled her chair to my desk. "Do you want me here?" "Yes." She looked surprised. "You're the only one who knows what Grant promised after he locked me out." "That's a cheerful reason." "It's still a reason. We called Elodie together. She was polite in the controlled way of someone doing us a favor she intended us to recognize. The director can receive them Tuesday at 3, she said. I need both passports, the Saint-Rémy guarantee, and a revised visitor form before my office closes. The form is ready, I said. The hotel is being confirmed now. Sophie was already calling the Saint-Rémy on her mobile. Ms. Ellis, Elodie said, your original request was excellent. The replacement request did not arrive. I know. Will you remain the contact? Yes. Then send the documents. No accusation, no forgiveness. Just a door held open for 6 more minutes. The Saint-Rémy's 4th floor room was still on hold. Sophie converted it to a 1-night guaranteed stay, while I sent the passport list through the new secure link. Dev moved the flexible Lyon to Milan rail segment without a fare increase. Lucia restored the accessible launch in Venice and added a note requiring Lenora's written approval before any equipment change. The private reception in Lyon couldn't move. Lenora gave it up without complaint. I've attended receptions, she said. Most of them could have been an email with wine. The delayed departure cost the agency $980. Grant approved it in writing. He also personally called the Copenhagen hotel and confirmed that the revised arrival wouldn't affect Lenora's conference registration. He was good on the phone. He remembered the room's director's recent promotion, used her name without overusing it, and secured a late meal that complied with Lenora's preferences. Watching him work reminded me how Ellis Passage had grown in the first place. Grant's failure had never been that he lacked skill. It was that he believed his skill entitled him to rearrange everyone else's. We worked until 7:30. Before leaving, Sophie placed the gold-embossed luggage tag in my palm. Do something with this before I throw it at Grant. I turned it over. Lenora's initials looked expensive and useless. Mina's suitcase has a broken zipper pull. Sophie laughed. Perfect. Mina attached it the next morning and announced that she was now a private client of the commuter train. By Monday, Lenora's itinerary was stable. Basel used the earlier departure. Lyon showed the Tuesday archive appointment and the Saint-Rémy overnight. The accessible launch was confirmed. Every page identified the person responsible for the promise printed on it. Grant asked me to join the Caro Finch presentation at 10. Am I a case study? I asked. You're head of the operational team for the meeting. That isn't my title. It can be if you stop treating every conversation like a contract negotiation. Today, what am I? He closed his eyes briefly. Senior advisor representing itinerary operations. Put it in the agenda. He did. Caro Finch sent 2 managing partners, Elaine Caro and Martin Bell, along with their operations director. They arrived in practical shoes, declined the pastries Grant had ordered, and asked for coffee strong enough to survive the presentation. Grant was in his element. He walked them through our client retention, supplier network, and plans for a recognizable private client division. Sophie presented her acquisition numbers and explained how she had converted the destination wedding account into 3 referrals. She was confident without performing confidence. Even Elaine looked impressed. Then Grant brought up Lenora. He described a complex itinerary managed across several employees, supported by documented preferences and shared supplier records. All of that was true. He did not call the handoff seamless. Elaine turned to me. What failed? Grant shifted one page in his folder. I answered. Authority changed after most of the work was completed. The client wasn't informed before the final briefing. Responsibility for open actions wasn't matched with access and experience. A supplier deadline was missed, and later communications were centralized through someone who wasn't servicing the booking. Martin looked at Grant. How was it corrected? The original lead advisor was restored, Grant said. We clarified authority, repaired the itinerary, and absorbed the costs caused by the transition. Why was the advisor changed? Silence moved around the table. Sophie answered. I was promised the account as proof I could lead the new division. The decision was made before the staff briefing. Grant's fingers tightened around his pen. Elaine didn't look scandalized. She looked tired. We see this often in founder-led agencies, she said. Sales succession gets confused with operational succession. I'm not the founder, Grant said. No, which makes repeating the problem less charming. Martin asked Dev to explain the audit trail. Dev showed the transfer acknowledgement, queue history, and named approval fields without dramatizing any of them. The records did what records do best. They made everyone less interesting and the sequence clearer. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. Caro Finch didn't walk away. They revised the proposed partnership terms. Ellis Passage would retain its name and Grant would lead sales. But account attribution, commission changes, and lead transfers would follow written controls reviewed by both operations teams. Complex itinerary leads needed defined certification, not a brochure. The private client program would launch 3 months later than Grant wanted. Grant negotiated hard on the hotel revenue split and won a better percentage. He gave up unilateral discretion over attribution. When the visitors left, he remained in the conference room, collecting untouched pastries. Sophie helped him fit the lid onto the box. I'm sorry I answered, she said. Are you? I'm sorry it hurt you. That's different. Yes. He looked at her for a long moment. You made me look dishonest. You told me Mara knew. I was trying to prevent this exact division. No, you were trying to make sure I accepted before she could object. Grant set down the box. He didn't deny it. Sophie moved into client acquisition with a path to complex itinerary certification. She complained about the coursework until Dev reminded her that she had once made Lenora's breakfast tray happen through a banquet contract. That should count as 6 credits, she said. It counts as breakfast, he told her. Caro Finch required an operations lead before integration could begin. Grant offered me the position on a Friday afternoon with a 2-page employment addendum. The title was Head of Itinerary Operations. It included authority over servicing standards, advisor attribution, transfer protocols, and supplier escalation. The salary increase was real. So was the language protecting earned commission. I read every line. Grant watched me from behind the useless black lamp. You can stop enjoying this any time, he said. I'm on page 2. You've been on page 2 for 10 minutes. The termination clause is exciting. He almost smiled. I signed after he changed management discretion to documented operational need in the transfer section. The original Wycliffe commission appeared in my next paycheck. By then, the blue Corolla had sold. My Honda's transmission began slipping on the same day I paid the deposit on a small apartment 12 minutes from the office. Diane helped me move. She arrived in old jeans carrying the blue towel that had once wrapped the lasagna dish. For the first hour, we discussed boxes and stair angles. Near the end, she stood in my new kitchenette folding the towel into a square. What I said about you renting there was ugly, she said. Yes. I wanted Sophie to have what you had. What did I have? Diane looked toward the living room where Sophie was trying to convince Dev that a bookcase could rotate through a doorway without removing the shelves. A place no one could question, she said. I watched Dev remove the shelves. I never had that. I know that now. It wasn't enough to make us close. It was enough to let her wrap my glasses without breaking them. Lenora returned from Italy 6 weeks later. She walked into my office carrying the navy folio beneath one arm. Its corners had softened. The gold elastic had stretched so badly that she had looped it around the cover 3 times. "The archive director was worth losing the reception," she said. "The St. Remy kitchen exhaust is audible from the 3rd floor, not the 4th. Lucia's boat captain wears unscented soap and has strong opinions about bridge traffic. I'll add that to his profile. I assumed you would." She placed the folio on my desk and opened it to the original service page. Beneath the printed line with my name, she had written in blue ink, "Everything promised was handled by the person who promised it." "You can keep that," she said. After she left, I replaced the stretched elastic with a new gold band from the supply drawer. I closed the folio and set it upright on the shelf facing my glass office wall. Grant passed a few minutes later carrying commission reports. He saw it, slowed, and read Lenora's sentence through the glass. Then he knocked before coming in.